Alright guys, time to grab it back again today. Hope you're enjoying your day so far, and today we're going to talk about Scump and his potential retirement. He's talked a number of times over the last couple of months, the fact that it's very possible that he retires within 2-3 seasons. Nature has been saying at quite some length that he believes that is the direction he should go in, and I think Hector has even pushed it as well to say, look, you can be making way more money as a content creator, and the fact that you're a player is taken away from that. Scump certainly believes, like, obviously this is a massive part of his life, the fact that he's competed for so many years. He certainly still wants to continue doing so, especially given the opportunity of still winning many more championships. He's still, of course, a fantastic player. There's definitely two sides to the story, but at some point, Scump will have to retire. And when he does, what does that mean for the CDL? Because the Huntsmen and Scump are certainly the biggest brand in the game. What does it mean for the storylines in the title? What does it mean for Hector Rodriguez and the rest of the guys over at Chicago Optic, or whatever exactly it's going to be called, as we talked about earlier today? Does that significantly reduce their brand value? If Scump can still stay on there as a content creator, it probably doesn't matter too much, and that's probably why, in my opinion, Envoy is almost being, well, set up to be the next Scump in that sense. And I believe Hector's already started this kind of like Prince thing going on around Envoy, so certainly makes a lot of sense. Like, if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new. As always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you for doing that. Before we get into the Scump stuff, wanted to mention this that came out from Tom Henderson, this like leaker guy over at, well, the Call of Duty side, that came out with yesterday. I hate to be that guy before Black Ops CoD was even launched, but it's looking like the CoD for 2021, so next year's CoD, is another Modern Warfare title of some kind. So it seems like Sledgehammer and, well, Raven are taking a back seat, not really doing anything anymore, and it's just going to be a Treyarch Infinity Ward combo every single time. And I honestly like the Sledgehammer games, so kind of unfortunate. But anyway, it seems like it's going to be a Modern Warfare title. Apparently it's something similar to like Modern Warfare something is what people are talking about. In a similar way, it's Black Ops Cold War. It's going to be Modern Warfare with a couple of words stuck on after it. Kind of a, kind of a clunky title, but whatever. Apparently that's going to be the thing, and Infinity Ward developing it once again. They're probably going to go down a very similar design route. Hopefully, Black Ops Cold War, we get a fantastic game, and then Modern Warfare 2 or whatever it's going to be, maybe not so great. So Scump went on the Courage and Nature show not too long ago, and he was discussing how, look, retirement is somewhere around the corner. It's not too far away, 2 years, 3 years, who knows, but he certainly doesn't want to retire quite yet. Obviously, he still has a fantastic team in Scump, Formal, Envoy, and Dashy on that squad, but at some point, he's got to, he's got to find a way out of the scene at some point as a competitive player. He's not exactly necessarily the player that he used to be. I mean, he was considered the best player back in Advanced Warfare for sure, like, Advanced Warfare, early Black Ops 3, even in like Black Ops 1 he was considered the best player when he was like 15 or so. These last couple of years, Scump's definitely, let's say fallen down the rankings. He's still definitely winning events and stuff like that, but he's not quite the SMG slayer that he used to be. And there's guys like Simp and Abeezy and all these guys that are coming up and being what Scump was several years ago, and Scump's going to change exactly the role he plays and what he does and what he can bring to a team in that sense, and is still perfectly capable of winning events and still wants to continue competing. And certainly if you're a competitor your entire life, he comes from a sports background as well, to the point where once you retire, and we've seen a number of other pros kind of experience this, that they retire and then they think like, damn, why did I retire? Like, I'm going to come back. We saw a number of players do it back in the day, like Parasite has probably retired like 4 times, and then he comes back straight away, because once you stop competing, you do miss that element, like it's part of your soul, it's part of your character, what you are as a competitor. Once you stop doing that, then, well, it takes away from that. And if you can still be competitive, certainly makes sense for Scump to still do it. At the same time, money talks, right? And being a content creator and having all these possibilities to stream full time and not have to worry about scrims and practice, and using that time to build sponsorship arrangements and all this kind of stuff in addition. Of course, Scump's doing pretty well for himself already, so he doesn't have to worry about that too much. But look at some of the big streamers in the world, the Dr. Disrespects, the Shrouds, the, Nick Merks, these type of guys that are bringing in absolutely crazy viewers. They've just focused on, playing the game these last few years and get away from actually the competitive aspect of it. And I think Scump can certainly have that in his future. So probably somewhat torn as to exactly what he should do right now. And maybe he's actually more valuable for Huntsmen as an asset, as a content creator, or Chicago Optic, or whatever it's going to be called, than necessarily being an actual player on their starting lineup. And we've seen a number of players retire over the last couple of seasons. Karma's retirement came as a pretty big shock throughout the Modern Warfare season in like June time and whatever, when he just decided to step away from competing forever after, the only 3-time world champion at the time, since equaled by Crimsix and Clayster. But you can talk about the online stuff to some certain degree. Jacob as well, not too long ago, I'm officially retiring from Call of Duty. An incredible 10-year run that gave me some of the best memories of my life, but it's time to move on to another challenge. So these guys, fantastic players in their day. Karma and Jacob, of course, like the last few years, back in Black Ops 2 days, Jacob was dropping like 1.3s at champs. Karma was doing the same thing, right? And over the last few years, competition has got greater, it's got much more difficult to stay at the top of your game, and they felt to a point where, they felt like retirement was a fair option, and maybe Scump is thinking a similar thing. But he said, okay, a couple of years away, like it's not too close. Vicento, of course, retired at the middle of 2019 as well. He then became a coach. I don't really think Scump wants to go down that route, I imagine, but there's certainly the question as to how much he does bring to their branding. So this is a look at the viewership for the 2020 World Championship. Pretty interesting stuff. In previous seasons, Optic Gaming has always dominated the viewership. There's no secret of that. Scump's the biggest name on the team. They are the biggest team more generally. When Optic weren't playing, the viewership wasn't necessarily there. But this season, the CDL did manage, at least at the World Championship. Certainly you can see the Chicago games are the most viewed. There's no surprise about that. But they did manage to get to a point where the actual World Championship Grand Finals was the most viewed game, right? Because you have the losers finals between Atlanta and Dallas. Then it goes to the Grand Finals, and well, 331,000 viewers is very impressive. Yes, they had the drops and all this kind of stuff, and you can see Chicago games certainly up here. And in previous seasons, you would pretty much see all the top games were the Optic Gaming games as they were at the time. This time, Chicago Huntsmen. If Scump steps away, what happens to this viewership number, right? Because it certainly drops off significantly, in my opinion. A number of people follow Chicago simply for Scump because they've followed him for a number of years. And if he was to retire, how much interesting competitive play disappears, right? Because a lot of people come into competitive play through Scump, and if you know, they're in the scene for long enough, they like other players, they build other relationships within the scene, and it gets to the point where if Scump was to retire, they wouldn't necessarily just disappear, right? Because they're actually a fan of the scene now more generally, but a number of the newer players may not exactly be in that boat quite yet, and some of the drops they had in the game maybe encourages it to stay. But yeah, it's still certainly a big question mark to me, because what makes the CDL so exciting is the names, it's the branding, it's the rivalries that these players have had over many seasons, right? If Scump retires and Crimsix retires, for example, that drama then disappears. Like, you know, where's the next drama that's up and coming? It's difficult to see Call of Duty, well, having the same success without these big name players. Therefore, there needs to be a really big focus on building these brands for the next generation. There certainly is some storylines that still exist, you know, outside of those kind of top legendary guys, but then, you know, there's somewhat few and far between. Like when Clayster, Crimsix, Scump, and these guys retire, like, you know, what does the CDL look like exactly? What do the rivalries look like? Is there the same rivalry between Chicago and Dallas, for example? Probably not. We gotta hope these guys are, well, continuing on for certainly another couple of years from now, I imagine. And as Easy Max says, this is back in May time, but, you know, he looks at the Twitter rankings, Huntsman with way more followers than so many of these other teams combined, if you want to look at it from that perspective, right? So, you know, part of this reason is, of course, by Scump being on the team. So I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. I thought this was kind of funny on the Reddit that Dowell noticed here, but over on the website right now on the CDL, a lot of these logos are kind of messed up. They're kind of scuffed. I don't know if this is like a Halloween just like joke or something like that. But you see the Huntsman logo looks kind of ugly. The Rocker logo as well. Seattle Surge, Paris Legion. The elephant in the room, of course, is Optic Gaming Los Angeles. Like, what is going on here? And New York Subliners as well looks kind of weird, and they were all like kind of jaggedy, a little bit strange. But well, I really wanted to bring this up because next season, even though Scump will retire at some point, the rivalries in terms of the brands are still going to be there. If Chicago become the Chicago Optic, if Los Angeles become the Los Angeles Thieves, the rivalry between like the Thieves and FaZe Clan, FaZe and Optic, you know, Dallas, of course, is still up here who are going to have great rivalries with a number of these teams over a number of years. That's still what's really cool. So you're still certainly going to have the inter-brand rivalry, but it tends to have been the personalities in Call of Duty that has driven the scene over a number of years, right? And if that's not the case anymore, then well, it's somewhat of a question mark to me as to how the CDL maintains their viewership going forward. And trying to get Envoy into this next like Scump role is probably Chicago Huntsman's biggest plan for when he does end up retiring, so he can bring that kind of a viewership into the game. But frankly, Scump is pretty one of a kind. There's no one who's done it like he has managed to do over this last decade of Call of Duty. And I wonder if that can ever be replicated. Unlikely to happen, in my opinion. But I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm know you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well. Thank you for watching as always. Take care, and I will see you next time.